Okay, great. Hey everyone, I'm Ricky Esclapon. I'm a senior data agent architect at Cambrian. I work for Sam Green. If you were here for his talk earlier, you already know that we're super interested at always being at the forefront of agentic finance. And we've been hacking quite a bit on the ERC-8004 standard, just kind of experimentations and learnings, and I'm just gonna kind of quickly run through some of them and then kind of give a bit of a demo of some interesting things that we've kind of been working towards on this. So yeah, starting off, we already had an agent that we call Deep42. Our agent is really focused on kind of bridging the gap between on-chain and off-chain data. So you can think like connecting smart contracts to GitHub repositories and like social data, and also just generally maximizing the data that we have available. But practically speaking, you can use our agent here. We have our docs. All the links will be at the end on the slide. But it's pretty standard agent. We have an API product. The agent is just effective at calling on these different API products and giving reasonably good answers. So of course, the first step is of course deploying it as an ERC-8004 agent. Not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I will say if you are looking to build these agents, for sure spend a fair amount of time on the A2A standards, the A2A agent card. It's pretty much all you really need. You need to kind of get started. And once you kind of figure that out, you can use the Agent Zero SDK created by Marco De Rossi. Which is just fantastic, and we've been contributing to it as well. But the A2A agent card, a little bit more challenging, but yeah, I'm not gonna keep talking about that. The next thing we kind of looked at was kind of, what can we do with like TEEs, like what can we kind of improve on? This wasn't an area where like we necessarily thought we're gonna get like a ton of ROI right away, but it is an area that we kind of wanted to familiarize ourselves with a little bit better. And again, so our end state here was, we made some steps towards kind of removing some trust assumptions. So like the code that is claimed to be actually running. There are still some trust assumptions though. So even like with this kind of TE model that we set up, basically we had one TE for our agent and one for an MCP server. And essentially these are kind of like both talking to each other, and then we kind of built this UI where you could kind of see like the proofs and kind of like the whole process kind of running through. The only thing I want to mention here is if you are hacking on like TE stuff, we just open source this repo. So you can feel more than welcome to like kind of take that as like a starting point. The other thing I'll mention is if you don't want to kind of go to the level of detail of like doing all this stuff yourself in GCP, for sure really recommend Eigencompute, sorry. Super good for like deploying TEs. Like I don't think I've really come across like a better CLI tool. So if you're just getting started, I recommend that. It is a bit more expensive in my opinion than like maybe it should, but for sure a very, very good product if you're like looking to start looking at TE stuff. And yeah, so more recently we've kind of been looking at the agent discovery problem. So again, like we were looking at all sorts of things before that I'm not going to touch on. But right now there's kind of a strong movement kind of towards figuring the agent discovery problem out. Because, we all want millions, billions of agents, but, how do you like actually kind of like get to the data you need, do it cost effectively, efficiently, like how do you kind of maximize on that? So we were experimenting with kind of a new API endpoint within kind of what our agent does, which essentially allows you to kind of plan like your optimal execution of what agents you should call on to kind of accomplish a given task. So at a high level, like I think knowledge graphs are like really an amazing primitive. So when we kind of look at it this way, essentially, we're going from like an original question down to capabilities, so like A2A skills of the agents. So from the question, basically, we want to find those that match in capability, right? Like to the question. And then from there, we we have like a certain number of agents that we sift through. We look at feedback, and then kind of, you can turn that into like a routing plan, and then like do also like the execution side of like kind of trying to optimize on these things. So I was gonna give a demo. I didn't have time to, or I didn't plug in my laptop, so hopefully this works. But essentially, here is a demo where I'm asking, which agents can tell me about movies, and it's essentially gonna kind of pull up the like relevant knowledge graph of like the information. So I'm gonna start from my query, which is, which agents can tell me about movies, and then there's a skill associated to movies, and then that's connected to the agent. And then from there, because it's in this like knowledge graph format, you can do like pretty interesting stuff with like grounding your answers and like get like so you see here there's like sources that are like associated with like the confidence level that the agent had. And then from there, the next thing we did is kind of turn that into like an execution plan. So as I said, like the API we're like experimenting with kind of creates this plan. And then, this is just a more simple execution of one agent, but you can do a lot. And actually, that's the part that we still need to work on more, is kind of making it more compatible across the board. Like there's a lot of, like we have standards, but in practice, like it's not that easy to kind of have an approach that works across the board. Yeah, and a quick word on like knowledge graph databases. I think, so this piece of code right here, so we're using a backend called Google Spanner Graph, which I very much recommend looking at. I think it's like an amazing database because it combines Cypher query language together with SQL, and it's like in the same database. And I think it just works so well. And in the past, I was kind of wary of like shifting to like a different kind of database from like past experiences I've had with like agentic DBs. But this one I very much recommend. And here it's kind of interesting to just look how simple it is. Like you find your like relevant knowledge graph, and there's many ways of doing that. And with knowledge graphs, you can even like represent relationships on top of it, like just content embeddings. You can do like really interesting things. And here we're pretty much just feeding it like the graph of information, and then like our question combined with the LLM. And yeah, we can get to like these really like good grounded answers just because like our data kind of lives in this format. And then from there we thought, how do you actually do this same thing, but like in a permissionless way, right? Like I can't go and like, sell like some version of Google Spanner to other people. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Like you're usually locked into like really huge things that you don't really need. So we kind of thought, like what would it look like to provide a database that has like the same kind of capabilities of Spanner Graph, but you can actually use like more effectively in like a agentic environment. So this is kind of, here, let's see. Yeah, so this is kind of like a very brief demo. So here on the right was like my first kind of interface and experience. So here we don't have like the 402 payments yet, but basically what I'm doing is I'm just like creating a new account on the database, and then I have like my own private view, and then from here I can run like SQL or Cypher kind of interchangeably. Sorry. So yeah, here I'm just gonna like basically start writing some data. So I did a query that had no results because it was a fresh database, but now I'm gonna write some data. So yeah, basically data's in there. I'm gonna go back to like my interface, and now like, okay, data's there. So basically, kind of working towards this idea of, sorry, here, let me just, yeah, sorry, I'll skip ahead for the interest of time here. So yeah, basically like before I showed a demo, that was kind of like, we ingested some data from like subgraphs and like on-chain information about the agents. And then we have like this QA process that we can do on it that has like very grounded answers. And then from there we can do like orchestration on it because we already know like I'm very confident this is like the best agent to call on. And all these things will like for sure get more complex, like with things like reinforcement learning. But yeah, so for now it's basically like, can we recreate the same thing, but not kind of doing it from our own DB that like we're building. And then yeah, here's kind of an example of like just importing the subgraph data. like into the database, and yeah, it just runs through. So you can kind of see like, number one, provision the database, and you ingest it, then you have like this Q&A process, and then you arrive at like orchestration kind of end result. And this is like the one area I think is like super interesting is like when you're using something like Google Spanner Graph, it doesn't inherently have kind of any capabilities around like attestations or anything like that. But with our database, like basically what we can do is we can not only make it permissionless and anyone can just like go on chain, pay for whatever we're using, like make an informed decision of should I keep using it, stop using it, but you also kind of have all these other benefits. So like so here's kind of a really ugly long list, but yeah, there's just like a lot more you can do when you kind of control your stack, and you can kind of see that also here as well. Like I can take all the attestation info and kind of like do verification on top of it and kind of see exactly what's going on. But yeah, so like, yeah, I'll share some links here at the end. But pretty much like anyone who wants to like just try it out and hack, like it's pretty much free, and yeah, like, and we have like an agent that like essentially you can use to like provision your database. But yeah, thank you.